Okay, did everybody get the message that they're being recorded? If you did, just thumbs up. Thank you. Thank you. Fred Decker raised hand. Great. Well, welcome everyone. I just want you to know that you're participating in a San Francisco State University event where we're going to record the audio and video. And what we typically do for these info sessions is after the recording of our actual info session, we put it on the website so it's available to people that weren't able to attend this evening. And, you know, just by participating in this event, we want you to know that you're consenting to being recorded. If you have questions or if your face happens to be seen on the video, which it shouldn't be because this is a webinar, but that you're releasing your you're consenting to letting us use this in the future. Just to read the statement, by participating in this event, you consent to audio recording, video recording, and or their release, publication, exhibition, or reproduction to be used for news, webcast, promotional purposes, telecast, advertising on websites, or for any other purposes that San Francisco State, its vendors, partners, affiliates, and or representatives deems fit to use. You release San Francisco State, its officers and employees, and each and all persons involved from any liability connected with the taking, recording, digitizing, or publication of interviews, photographs, computer images, video, or sound recordings. So now you've been fully informed of your consent, waiver of liability, and release before participating in the San Francisco State event. So welcome to San Francisco State University's College of Extended Learning, the Geographic Information Systems Certificate Program. And I am joined here today by my colleagues, the Director of the GIS program, Jerry Davis, Anna Studwell, who is the Assistant Director, and Afitab Bose, who is the Program Coordinator on the College of Extended Learning side. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and forth kind of describing the slides, explaining the program, and then we'll have time for questions and answers at the end. And you can either raise your hand then or type it in the chat and we'll be able to respond to your questions. So without further ado, Anna will give you the program overview. Thank you, Anna.
Thanks, Karen. Welcome, everyone. We're really excited to have you here learning about the GIS program that we have in store for spring 2021. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to go over the program style that we have offered this term, which is in a remote format, as I'm sure many programs are these days. So I will take a little bit of time to first talk about what that remote format means. So our online classroom, we've had a full semester just this past fall, and now we have another full semester this coming spring. So we offer two different types of GIS classes, either asynchronous or synchronous. And the difference between these two formats is two things. An asynchronous class we offer over the period of 1 week, so Monday through a Friday, whereas synchronous classes are offered over 2 days, 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. So the time format is one difference between those. And then the second thing is the meetings. So asynchronous classes have optional meetings. They're not required for you to attend, but although we highly encourage you to attend those meetings. And all those optional meetings are going to be hosted in Zoom through SF State and iLearn. Whereas synchronous classes offered on the Friday and Saturday you're required to be at those Zoom meetings, right? So you're required to be there with the instructor from 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. both on Friday and Saturday. Then of course there's built-in breaks for during that time. You can take a break in between lab exercises and things like that. One other thing to keep in mind, especially since we're just about to kick off the semester, is that enrollment closes 1 week before each class start date. So we've got 11 classes for this spring, and the intro class is the first one that's coming up. The enrollment deadline is Monday, January 18th. That's this coming Monday. So please be sure to sign up for it if you're interested in that intro by that time. And we take up to 24 students in each of these classes. The intro is one of the most popular, so it's a good one definitely a good one to start with. That class is asynchronous and it runs from January 25th. So it's over the period of that week of January 25th. But remember, sign up by January 18th. And then, okay, so once you sign up or register for a class, you'll be given a San Francisco State University 9-digit ID. You'll use this for everything SF State related, and then it's tied to your email as well. So communication occurs through primarily the iLearn page, which is our learning management system at SF State, whereby all emails go out through that iLearn page to your SF State email. We've had participants in the past wonder why they didn't get emails sent to their personal account. This is the reason why. We operate, once you enroll, everything SF State related goes to that SF State email. So one workaround option for that is you can always set up email forwarding. And so there's a link provided here where you go, and so you could have your SF State email forward once you have it established to your Gmail account or your whatever personal account you have. And there's of course ways to reset the password for that. I briefly mentioned the learning management system, which is iLearn. So in the remote learning format, iLearn is where you're going to go to access any class information. That's where the Zoom link is going to be for your class meetings. That's where the class content is going to be. That's the primary means by which instructors will communicate with you. Sometimes there's discussion forums set up in classes depending on what class it is, and that's typically through iLearn. And so once you're enrolled, your access to iLearn will be visible, or it will be available for the past 5 years. And then your 2 previous years worth of content will stay visible online in iLearn. However, once you do work in a class, we do highly encourage students to download any material from iLearn to their local computer if you want to keep it for future reference. I mentioned Zoom already. That's what we're in right now. We're in a Zoom webinar right now. Zoom, so take some time to familiarize yourself with the raise hand button and all of that, the chat window. Zoom is how all the instructors will be communicating for the most part for the program when we have those either required meetings for the synchronous classes or optional meetings for the asynchronous classes. And that's where you get kind of engagement with both your instructor and with your peers as well in the class. And then, so some students like to take our classes through their work. And sometimes your work may be able to reimburse you for taking the classes. So I'll offer a enrollment verification letter for you if you need that upon request. It'll signify that you completed the class successfully. So we check with the instructor that you completed the class, and then you can give that letter. It's usually just an Adobe signed PDF. that we send out to you, and you can give it to your employer to confirm that you took the class. And I should also mention that this program, because we're through the College of Extended Learning, we offer continuing education units. These are CEUs. And so some students will take our classes to earn these CEUs that you can then apply toward work-related benefits and things like that. In our program, 10 hours is equivalent to, I believe it's 1 CEU. So we can double check if you have more questions about that later. And so, and then finally, a common question we get asked is, do you need to apply to enter into the certificate program? No, you can. The only prerequisite for all of the rest of the classes in the program is the intro class coming up next in 2 weeks or so. So that intro to GIS is all you need to take before you can take any of the other electives in our program. And you don't need to apply to get into the program or anything like that. It's not a master's program. It's not an academic program. However, when you have earned, or when you have completed the necessary classes to earn a certificate, and we'll talk about the 2 different course tracks that you can take in just a couple of slides. When you have completed all the classes required to earn that certificate, that's the point at which you'd apply for your GIS certificate, right? So it's a certificate, GIS certificate of completion at the end of your time in the program with us. Next slide, please. So other common questions we get are about the software we teach with. Primarily, we teach with ArcGIS Pro, which is a software from the vendor Esri. This is a desktop software, and most students really like having their own laptop to do lab exercises, so that's not absolutely necessary. It is what we suggest, having your own space, just because it's easier to kind of link to your own local path names and things like that. Arc Pro, you typically need a minimum of about 32 gigabytes of space with a Microsoft.NET framework. And this link in the set of slides will bring you to Esri's website. Yeah, if you want to click that, you can show them what it looks like. Or if you want to just Google Esri ArcGIS Pro, usually they have the system requirements page like pretty readily available. What we're teaching with right now is the version Arc Pro 2.5.2. Oh, and so it looks like Karen's pulling that up. Yeah, so here's our guide. So your installation instructions, that all you need is your SF State 9-digit ID to be able to license the software, and steps 1 and 2 will tell you how to download and install the most current version of Pro. So yep, so where Karen's pointing to there is just that's where you can check to see if you meet the requirements. Exactly. And it's actually, the requirements for Pro 2.6 are probably about the same for Pro 2.5 at this point. So Esri's built in a nice system that allows you to kind of just click a button and it checks your computer to be able to verify if you've got the right hardware requirements needed. So let's go back to the PowerPoint. All right. So once you know you've got the equipment you need, so actually so a common question we get is about Mac computers. So Esri software, ArcGIS Pro, as well as ArcMap, which is the older desktop software, only work on a Windows operating system. They don't work on a Mac or Apple operating system. So if you've got a Mac and you're wondering what you can do, there is software you can purchase called Parallels, for example. We don't offer any discounts through the university. You'd have to look through Microsoft to get that. But that allows you to have a parallel operating system installed on a Windows, or sorry, on an Apple operating system. So you could kind of toggle between a Windows OS and a Apple Mac OS. So that costs a little bit. You'd have to look into that yourself to get that if you wanted it. The alternate option is Boot Camp. We don't really support either of these options through the university, but Boot Camp just anecdotally is a way you can partition your drive if you wish to do that. But I suggest calling the Genius Bar with Apple to get help with how to do that. Okay, and if we move down the bullet list here, ArcGIS Online, some of the classes in our program, such as the cartography class, teach with ArcGIS Online. My backdrop here is actually our homepage backdrop showing San Francisco in the background. And that's the homepage for our ArcGIS Online account. So you might do some web mapping in there if you take cartography. And there are a few other classes, I think, that make use of our ArcGIS Online account in the program. If you find that you can't get your own PC computer or Windows operating system, the university just let us know that we are going to continue having a remote desktop option that you could sign into from the other type of computer that you have. That remote desktop option, so you'll see it highlighted a little bit down, is called Microsoft Azure. So you may find at the top of your class's iLearn page that your instructor is linked to something called Microsoft Azure or remote desktop. That's on a class-by-class basis, they'll request this. The majority of classes will request this option, just in case you can't get your Mac with a Windows operating system on there. So that's a possibility. And that's got ArcGIS Pro, ArcMap, and ERDAS software, which is for remote sensing classes, all installed already for you. So you could use that for the duration of the spring semester. The only thing about that is you won't be able to keep any content on there after spring 2021. So you'd end up wanting to download it to your own computer if you wanted to keep what you've worked on in the program. The only other bullet on this side is Esri Trainings. So as part of our site license with Esri, there are a handful of trainings that you can take that might just kind of refresh a skill that you have. They have a whole huge catalog that are all available in ArcGIS Online, some of which are free to the public already. So you can check them out ahead of time, even if you're not in the program yet. All right, I think I might move over to the next slide here. So once you enroll in a class with us, you're part of our San Francisco State GIS community. And we have, through this certificate program, a couple of different ways to continue staying in touch. We have a LinkedIn page, and I have the name of it written there. And we have a Facebook page. The LinkedIn is more like I'll post internship things, opportunities or job opportunities that come up as they show up in my inbox, and I'll post those to the LinkedIn page. The Facebook page is kind of just, it's not super active right now, but it's if you want to post funny maps you've found or just stay social with your GIS peers. That's just a nice resource to have. And then also, once you're enrolled in the classes, you'll automatically be added to a job internship forum that I also maintain that will send the same things that we send to LinkedIn to this, and those postings will be sent to your SF State email. So you'll have the option to either forward those to your personal email or just, you don't need to subscribe or anything. It'll just go to your SF State email. I think that about covers it for the program overview. Next slide, please. All right, so I'll let Karen take this next slide, I think.
you know, it's complicated in a webinar because the things are located differently than the info session. So I'm unmuted now. So let me tell you about Courses for Causes. Courses for Causes is where we offer free classes that are available to our first responders and essential workers. And all the registration information that you submit will be reviewed and verified by a committee before enrollment, and the enrollments are subject to availability. But first responders are considered to be people like in the healthcare professions, first responders such as licensed vocational nurses, registered nurses, physician's assistants, medical assistants, EMTs, etc., etc. And essential workers are workers such as grocery store employees, food service providers, janitorial staff, or any other licensed healthcare professionals that we didn't list above. And other essential workers may be considered as well, such as delivery people, etc. The cost is that the first course that you take is free. So that would mean you could take a free GIS certificate class, and then your second class would be 50%. And from there forward, you would have to pay full price. And this is only available for the spring 2021 semester. So if you are a first responder or an essential worker, I encourage you to go ahead and take care of or take advantage of this opportunity while it exists. And thank you so much for all that you've done for us. Thank you for taking care of our communities. So the standard certificate curriculum, I'm hoping that Jerry will go over the certificate and the other certificate in the GIS certificate program here at CEL.
Happy to do that. Yes, great to see all the folks who've been able to attend this. And I had to notice Holly Herring on there. There could only be one Holly Herring. I know Holly Herring, and I from years ago. So good to see your name on there. Anyway, get in touch. Hi, she says. Good. All right, so we have two JS certificates that we offer, and the one of these is the standard certificate. And this one covers a lot of different bases. We've been doing this standard certificate in various forms since like 1994 when our whole program started. It has a core of 5 classes that we've identified as the most essential, to frame everything. The intro class is right up there at the top. And then the follow-on class from that data acquisition for GIS is both of those currently taught by Andy Richardson. He's retiring from this after this semester, so make sure you take it before he leaves. And not that we won't have an excellent instructor next, but Andy has been very special to us. And then database management for GIS, very important capability that everyone needs to know how to work with databases. How to do it, create a map, good cartographic design. Elizabeth Proctor teaches that class. And that one is, GIS, you make maps, but you want to know a little bit about how to make a good one. And then the last one in the core is managing a GIS project, which is kind of our culminating experience class. Tom Robinson teaches that one. And that's when after you've learned all these skills, you kind of put together a project. You propose data acquisition and all those kinds of, you look at how you work in teams and things like that. And you go through the whole process of doing a project. All that happens. Yeah, so it's that's the frame of the essential things. And then as you can see from the electives, this is where you can kind of identifying areas you want to specialize in, right? For example, I teach the watershed GIS class. So we have some people who are interested in watersheds and natural resource management kinds of things, and that fits well into that, and kind of a similar vein, ecological applications of GIS, remote sensing with LiDAR. I mean, of course, you can take quite a few different classes that contribute to kind of understanding not only how watersheds work, but also other natural resources and things like that. Um, there's some things which are related to field methods, the GPS class, the drone class. Those are, and also the watershed GIS class we deal with, and then the coastal and marine science class also, looking at how you would approach field methods for these kinds of things. Um, so, and then, if you're a little more interested in kind of urban things, there's sustainable planning and urban design. Of course, a lot of these things relate to that as well. I mean, using JavaScript for web mapping and things like that, doing visualization that can apply across many kinds of things, Python programming. So quite a variety of different kinds of things that you can kind of put together depending upon your area of interest. There's a crime analysis, so that also might be something that you'd have some interest in, and that those combined with other kinds of classes. Let's go to the next slide, and we'll look at the concentration environmental analysis curriculum. So this one is the first one we put together. We may do others. We haven't put together another one, but this one is really a little more focused, for example, in environmental analysis. We've tend to have a lot of people in the environmental field, environmental consultants and things like that, or people who work in NGOs and things like that, are interested in working in that field. And this one really aims for that kind of thing. And I'd say was our first choice in this because it's kind of something that a lot of us instructors are working in various ways. It has the same core of 5 classes that we talked about earlier. But then also has, it's a little more complicated to go through, but Anna can help you out with figuring these things out. But it's relatively clear when you go through. There's some electives in the area of applied environmental methods, so GPS, remote sensing, ecological applications, coastal marine science, watershed, drones, and LiDAR. All those kind of things are environmental methods that can be applied in a variety of ways. In those classes, for example, one of those classes, raster GIS and analysis, you could either do in that area, or you also oops, don't want to go. Let's go back. All right, it's okay. We're cool. One of the things that kind of is maybe not completely clear on this is if you look at the lower left over there, it shows choose one geography 9008 raster GIS or 9013 spatial analysis and modeling. Those are both analytical classes. So, if you're doing analysis, geoprocessing kinds of things, we call them, where you might either use kind of more raster analysis tools or more vector analysis tools. And when you get into the program, you'll learn a lot more about what those mean. But there are going to be 2 really common different ways of doing analysis, but they're very much analysis focused. We also have, as part of this, you needed two courses in the area of programming and modeling. And let's stay on that. Slide. It's okay. So programming model, we use a variety of different kinds of tools for programming and modeling. I mean, I tend to use Python and R. So you can see a couple of classes in there: GIS programming with Python and Introduction to R. And there's also that spatial analysis and modeling, the geoprocessing thing, which you can either do in this section or you can do as part of the 2 courses that you need to take, or one of the 2 courses you can take in that area. There's also Model Builder, which is a more visual programming kind of thing. Scientific visualization is used, and then JavaScript, which is a more web-based kind of programming. So really, there's kind of 3 or I'd say 4 programming environments. There's Python, there's R, Model Builder as a visual one, and JavaScript for web mapping. So we really cover the bases in the variety of kinds of of capabilities that you need in order to be, and that's is really important for the job market, you know, being able to program in one or two languages and things like that. And we have picked the two most common ones, R and well, if we include JavaScript, R, Python, and JavaScript, those three right there dominate the programming world. You know, outside of kind of developers like that, they might do C++ or something like that. But in terms of application programming and things like that, those are the biggest things in data science, for example, or R and Python. Those are the leading ones in data science. We're probably going to add some data science classes into this, but a lot of data science applies. The introduction to R is going to have some data science, for example. Anyway, that's kind of the more specialized kind of topics. And so we're going to move on to the next slide, and I'm not sure who I'm handing it off to, but hope to see you guys in some classes.
That would be me. Thank you, Jerry. And I know there's typically more questions about the concentration environmental analysis. If we can go back one more, yeah. So this slide is meant to be helping us. Oh, back one more, please. So the kind of the cut and dry way of discerning the differences between the standard GIS certificate program and the concentration and environmental analysis. These are two different course tracks. There's a standard and the concentration. The standard is a little bit more straightforward. So to complete that certificate, that means you'll have passed a minimum of 11 classes, 5 core classes and 6 electives, right? That's what you would need to do to accomplish the standard GIS certificate. And then below that is the concentration and environmental analysis. So the key difference here is that you need to have completed 12 classes to complete the concentration and environmental analysis course track and earn that concentration certificate. So as Jerry was talking about, it's going to be the same 5 core classes from the standard course track plus 1 additional class, either raster or spatial analysis, that 9013 class. So you have a total of 6 core classes for the concentration and environmental analysis that you'd need. And then you'd have 6 electives that you need to complete between the 2 different pools that Jerry was detailing on the former slide. All right. Another common question we get asked is about intro to GIS. So if you have previous GIS experience, you know, maybe you've been working in the field for a long time and you've been using GIS regularly, and you'd rather just take a handful of electives, you can contact me or Jerry to get approval to apply either that work toward waiving the GIS the intro to GIS, or if you have equivalent, you know, intro GIS experience taken at a university. Maybe you took intro GIS a couple of years ago while you were in an undergraduate or graduate program. We just ask to verify that you completed that. And so you just contact either Jerry or I with that information, and then we'd help you fill out a petition for waiver of college regulations in order to waive that intro to GIS class. And so that intro to GIS is the prerequisite for all their classes in the program. So then you could move forward and either take a couple of electives you might be interested in, or you can move forward and complete the next classes in the certificate that you're interested in earning. And then finally, over on the far right, if you were in the Geography and Environment Department at San Francisco State, or possibly in the Urban Studies and Planning Department, some of the classes in the academic program may be counted as substitutions. So there's an equivalency list that you can check out on the IJSC website, and also the College of Extended Learning website that describes what those substitutions are, so that those could be used toward your certificate as well. So for example, if you took 603 Intro to Geographic Information Systems through the Geography Department. That could be applied as a substitution toward one or two of the classes in the GIS certificate program. All right, that covers it.
Good evening, everybody. This is Afita Bose. I'm the program coordinator, and I handle all your questions and inquiries about enrollment, certificate requests, and all that. So please feel free to shoot me an email for those inquiries. So I will briefly talk about the certificate request. We hope that you will all end up on this page soon. As Anna mentioned that there is no application process. However, it is your responsibility to request your own certificate since we do not track who is taking which class. So that is your responsibility at our end. What is important for us, of course, to know your name, your ID, and the certificate that you completed. The first and most important thing is that we want you to apply once all grades are posted. If there are any grades are missing, obviously we cannot verify your certificate request. So you may expect to receive your digital certificate within 4 weeks after you submitting your online form, and 6 weeks your hard copy. And also that I wanted to mention your digital certificate always email to your personal email account, not your SFSU email account, because you are graduating, right? So therefore, before applying for your certificate, it is very important for us to access your most up-to-date email address and mailing address. So those are all listed on our website, those warnings. So please follow these steps. We are only to be more efficient and more helpful to you. We are a state university, so we're not interested in your personal information. Next slide, please. Thank you, Karen. I also wanted to talk about who you should be contacting. As I said in the beginning, that you can contact me to request all the other contact information at College of Extended Learning. But I also wanted to let you know that we have dedicated staff for third-party payers. If your company or someone else is paying for your tuition, so please feel free to contact Sarah. And if you're interested in courses for courses, please contact Cheryl Tao for your questions. And most importantly, visit our website. I see on the chats that there are lots of questions who's eligible for courses for courses. So I also saw that one of my coworkers just replied, just try. Please do. Go ahead. Do it today if you want, this evening. And just say that I consider myself an essential worker. Submit your online enrollment form. So because they will contact you and they will ask you to prove what you're doing. They may ask you to take a picture of your badge and email it to you, and they will discuss whether you're eligible. So if you have time, go ahead and do it, please. Also, for all your general registration requests, please contact Enrollment Services. If you're a SF State alumni or you're currently San Francisco State University, you may be having a hard time to enroll in our classes because we need to create you a College of Extended Learning non-academic track. So you need to be term activated for that. So for those questions, please contact our enrollment services because I do not have access to that part of the database. For For your GIS program advising, academic advising, obviously GIS technical or licensing questions, please contact Anna. For any other support, enrollment, certificate completion, certificate request, please contact me or Karen, my program lead. I think that concludes my slides. Thank you.
So thank you, everyone, for coming to our slideshow presentation, and we appreciate you taking the time to find out more about our GIS programs. So right now, you can either unmute to ask questions or type questions in the chat. So, oops, I tell you, wow. Let me see. 2 participants raised their hands. So we have Q&A. Please forgive me. This is my first time kind of going through the webinar, so it's a different process. So Bill Jensen asks, can you explain geography 90/20? Can't hear you, Jerry.
Jerry, you need to
Let me see. What is 90/20? I should know this off the top of my head. 90/20. Scientific visualization in GIS. Yes, I actually originally developed that class. I haven't taught it recently. But what that one is using various graphical tools, both you focus on the kind of the 3D modeling and visualization tools in ArcGIS, as well as, I think, depending on who the instructor is, it might use a little bit of R or something like that, but there's some very powerful visualization tools for visualizing scientific data of various sorts. So that's what that one's about.
And actually, that Bill's next question is also the application is R used for. So I think you answered that.
I believe 9020 is mostly taught with ArcGIS.
Yeah.
Seth Hyatt's the instructor this term. The intro to R is the class where you're going to be mostly using R, and Jerry Davis will be teaching that this term.
Okay. And is there a difference in tuition if out of state? No. So this is the same in-state, out-state, wherever. Is there a possibility for financial aid? No, because these are non-academic professional development programs, there is no financial aid, I'm sorry. Unless you qualify for courses pauses that I went over earlier, where you, if you're an essential worker, a substantial discount, 1 free class, 1 class half price. Oh, and forgive me, my internet's now unstable. So it says, how about the second part of Sam Trim's question? Does completing the CEL certificate increase the chance of getting accepted into the MS program?
Oh, I'll take that one.
Anna, Jerry?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we actually have had some students who have gotten into our master's program where we first met them through this. It hasn't been very many of them, but we have had those, and it's, there's someone I first met through the certificate program last spring who's starting up with us, and he's in my seminar, my grad seminar in the spring, and I'm looking forward because we had a great conversation. It was great to meet him during the certificate program, and I would never met him, except for this. So yes, it definitely does help. Yeah.
Wonderful. That's good to know. And then the next question, I realize in creating these slides, I did not include a price. So the question is, how much do the programs cost? And
I can pull that up, Karen. So it's $395 per class is the baseline. And we often get the question about what's the full amount for the program, and it's listed on the CEL website. But if you multiply 395 times 11, that's how that would be the minimum cost for a standard GIS certificate.
so it says on the website, the standard certificate is up to $4,345 based on your elective choice for 11 courses. And the GIS with the concentration in environmental analysis certificate is up to $4,740 based on your elective choice for 12 courses. So.
On a rare occasion, we've offered a 3-day class, which was a little bit more than the standard 395, which is why it's the minimum expected amount is what's listed on the website. But all the classes this spring are only what's the word? 1.6 CEUs, and so that and for each of those classes this spring, they're $395.
And I think what we're going to be probably doing is that the 3-day class, we're looking at changing that to a 2-day class. So they should all be the same, but that's the drone class. And their open question as to whether we're hoping to offer that this June, but it's a tricky one to offer. But if we do offer it, that's one of the things we would need to this can be some timing. We need to figure all that out. But anyway, that was our plan to make that a 2-day class.
So there's another question from Sam who says, is the intro to R class mainly focused on basic R commands, or will there be GIS modeling? If so, how much modeling? And is this R within ArcGIS or R separately? So you guys can look at the question.
I better take that one for sure. I'm going to be that. Yeah, so we're going to use R Studio as the environment. It will all be in R. And it will essentially be half introduction to R and then half spatial, making maps with it. So it's about the nice thing about R is you actually get to develop maps pretty quickly after you picked up the basic R. So you're able to make some really nice maps even in 2 days. Yep.
All right, and the next question is, do you have any coordination with unemployment for any kind of financial aid? And I wanted to start in on this and hope that Afitab will kind of chime in. Often, our programs are available through the workforce development programs in your city or county, and you can use the workforce development funds, contacting our subsidies person, our third party agency person, and get it paid for that way, like through CalJobs. Afitab?
Also that I believe now all one-stops are online, so you can contact your counties or cities or towns one-stops to see the eligibility of GIS program. And with that information, you can contact our third-party payers. So we closely work at College of Extended Learning with all counties in San Francisco Bay Area, and we can help you, but we cannot tell you and advise you which resources you should be contacting. Your city or town is the correct, right place to ask and raise those questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we also have a complicated question. So panelists, you may want to look at this yourself. It says, number 1, approximately how long are the courses? Number 2, With the exception of the intro course, is there a recommended order to progress? Number 3, I've completed USP 492, but completed 493 just last semester. Am I eligible to skip the Intro to GIS course?
I'll take that one. Thanks for that question. Great question. So the answer to the first part, approximately how long are the courses? Every course this spring is offered courses are offered either asynchronously or synchronously this spring. If a course is offered asynchronously, it's over the period of a Monday through a Friday. So for 1 week. All right, so it's that for that week, you're focused on that class, and the grades will be due at the end of that week with your instructor. And your instructor will give you a syllabus and everything and you're expected to complete it within that 1 week. That's asynchronous. Synchronous classes are offered over 2 days, 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. for those 2 days only, okay? So we have it lined up so that you could complete 1 class per week. It's just going to be either asynchronous or synchronous. With the exception, so the second part of your question, with the exception of the intro course, is there a recommended order to progress? Generally speaking, we usually encourage you to try to get the core classes done with at the beginning of the program, though it's not required. The one class that it's better to wait until when we have it scheduled is what we consider the capstone class. It's the 5th or the final core class in the standard certificate or the concentration in environmental analysis called Managing a GIS Project. We usually encourage you to take that after you've had a handful of other electives under your belt, because you're going to be working in groups with different students in your class on something that hopefully you'll have built up a repertoire of skills that you can use and apply during that Managing a GIS project. So we highly recommend you kind of take that toward the end of the time that you're in the program.
Can I jump in here briefly on that? Yeah, and in fact, we always set up our semester schedule such that one is almost very last class of the term anyway. So it's easy to and then the other core, the first 2 core classes are always at the beginning, and the other ones. So you can pretty much follow along on as the courses are offered. So it makes it a little easier to do that. And the other thing I wanted to mention real quickly is because Anna was talking about the asynchronous and synchronous online classes. We have put a lot of work into designing an online offering. It was something we really had to quickly move into last spring. We've got a great advisory board who we've worked with. Some of them are the instructors in the program. And we've had great conversations. And I'm very proud of what we've done. And I think you'll find it's an excellent online environment in our courses. I just wanted to add that.
Thanks. Yeah, exactly. We've been through it at least one semester, so we know how to improve it for this semester to have this functioning well in an online environment. And to answer the third question. USP 492 and 493 are part of the Urban Studies and Planning program at San Francisco State. So this is a question about substitutions. So the short answer is, if you successfully passed those 2 classes, you may apply them as a substitution for Intro to GIS. So yes, correct. You can skip the intro because you'll have gotten some GIS exposure already through those classes. Though the intro is a really great class, so if you want a refresher, we will encourage you to do that as well. Thank you.
So I see a final question here. It's, do most students complete the certificate program over 2 semesters? Jerry, Anna, Afi.
Well, yeah, Anna. So Anna may have a different impression, but my impression is most students at least complete the bulk of the program in one semester. But it's actually fairly common. And a lot of this that really depends upon external factors. They may not be able to take a particular class because of their schedule or something like that. Or there are some classes that are only offered in the fall and some classes only offered in the spring. So when you're kind of choosing things, that's usually the most common reason why someone might take more than one semester. Anna, do you have anything else to add to that?
Not too much more. I think I've seen students who have completed it, they in one semester they took classes every single weekend and then they finished up. It's pretty grueling
Uh-oh.
if
It
you take
looks
it every single
like
weekend.
Anna might have some internet. Oh, here she is.
Oh, sorry about that. Um, well,
So Jerry was asking if you had anything to add to this last question
yeah, sorry, my
about
internet wants to
completing the
do that.
certificate. Yeah.
The short answer is we've seen both. Some students, they take classes every week and they finish it up in one semester. That's more common if you're going for the standard GIS certificate. If you're going for the concentration in environmental analysis, it's much more common that you'll end up waiting to take some electives. You'll take the bulk of your classes in one term, but then take a couple of electives the following term to finish that up. But we've also seen students finish up classes they've taken and then they wanted to take an elective here and there later on, a number of years later. So it varies widely. And I see another question. Karen, did you want to read the other ones? Oh, you're muted right now, sorry.
I am muted. Of the 5 intro courses, all 1 week or 2 days, what is your recommended workload for students who already have 12 units scheduled for spring? So I think, Hyan, I think you're asking how many GIS classes should I take if I'm already taking 12 units in 12 academic units? Is that what you're asking, Hyan?
I think it's probably safe to assume that that's the question. And Hyan, please do clarify if it's not. But Jerry, you might want to take that one since you're
Yeah. So
yeah.
12 units, I'm a regular academic advisor. And so, I talk to all kinds of students and the biggest, so if you're a student, full-time student, there's not going to be a problem adding on something like this to that, um, I don't see it, but the issue is commonly other things in your life. How much kind of workload you've got. I think that's the biggest variable that controls that. But I can definitely see students taking. For one thing, the classes are. It's easy to in terms of scheduling. I mean, the synchronous classes are Friday, Saturday, right? And so that doesn't overlap with the times of your regular academic classes. And then the other ones are asynchronous with the optional meetings. And by the way, I do the asynchronous and my optional meetings I really hope everybody gets there. And we just have a meetings like 20 minutes at a time. So like every evening during the week, we have a little time for everybody to get together. And so that also doesn't tend to conflict because it's in the evening. And I think most of the instructors do that when they have their optional evenings, optional meetings in the evening. So at least in terms of a schedule that works, I really do think that the biggest variable is what else you're doing in your life. If you're taking care of small children, that makes a big challenge, right? So that we really well know that. So that's as far as close as I can get to answering that.
Unmute. I think this is our final question. For the planning of classes, Sam wants to know, are the summer and fall class schedules available? If not, when will they be available? And I'm going to let Afitap and Anna answer that question.
Uh, so the short answer is no, they're not available yet. um, and usually, I think Afitop can also, correct me if I'm wrong about it, but I believe we're getting we're getting the fall schedule together by June, and that'll be posted in June. Jerry mentioned earlier the potential for a summer class. Due to COVID, we don't know if we're going to be able to offer classes on campus in the summer yet. We're still remote, as you all probably have gathered by offering all these classes remote in the spring. We know that much. There's a good possibility we'll continue to be remote in the summer, but we don't know enough yet about that. What we do know is the kind of the regular scheduling, which is by June we'll have the fall
Yeah.
schedule posted online.
So if I could jump in here real briefly on that one, because of the situation right now and not knowing what our situation is going to be in the fall, we are planning to get our schedule together for the fall in May. Not normally we'd be doing it earlier than that. We're going to be cutting it pretty close because and we're also going to have a lot of discussions about our instructors because probably some of the classes are going to stay online. No matter even if we go back, and we may have some with flipped classrooms or kind of various hybrid kinds of things. We're like I said, we're taking we take the program very seriously, and we're putting a lot of effort into designing any changes we make in the best possible way. So it's going to be kind of delayed, however, to know just what's going to be happening in the fall. Yeah.
And Bill asks in the chat, are the environmental certificate classes offered every semester?
Well, some of them are. I mean, all of the ones, the core classes are common between them, and they're offered every semester. But usually the other class, the elective classes, some of them are off. Some can't. Yeah, are there any of them that are offered each fall and spring? I know I've sometimes done raster both fall and spring, but I don't think we're doing that. So I think they typically it depends on your choice of things you would be taking. Watershed GIS class is offered in the fall. Right. So if you want to do the watershed, do that in the fall. If you want to do, certain other kinds of things there in the spring, for example. So it is a little bit of a choice between which particular courses. So all depends upon your need for choice for how important it is to finish in a particular term versus how much flexibility you want to have in your whole program. Those are the kind of balances.
Okay. Um, well, I think that, every time I think we have, he answers, thank you. Thank you. So I think that answers all our questions in Q&A and everything in the chat. And, let's see. How much extra time outside of the class time is expected for assignments?
Oh, yes. I could probably
There you
take
go,
that one.
Holly.
Yeah. So this is one of the changes that we made moving to online. It used to be that with the synchronous classes, and it may well be the synchronous classes still work that way, is that those are typically done all during that time frame. Now, we do recognize that there can be, because everybody's running the software on their own computers, we actually allow people to take longer. You can complete it during that time, but you can take longer to complete it. And then for the asynchronous ones, I mean, it's really not that different. It's just like over a week, you have the lectures are all recorded and things like that. And people, yeah, I'd say that the amount of time spent on it typically is about the same, where it's like 2 solid days, or you could spread that over a week. So the lectures themselves are, less than a half of that total. right? So there's a lot of time working on that. And then, you know, some students are going to want to look at the lectures multiple times to understand things, you know, it depends on how much experience you have. So a lot of variables to consider in terms of that.
I'll chime in to also add to that. So when we taught in person, each class was offered in person in the lab, and it was for 8 hours of contact time each day. So that's 16 hours of contact time. So that during that contact time was when you would complete the majority of your classes. As Jerry said, the synchronous classes tend to emulate that just in an online environment. So it can vary a little bit based on, you know, how tech savvy you are, how well prepared you are ahead of time with the software already set up, that kind of thing. So it can vary a bit, but I think, as Jerry said, 2 days or 16 hours is kind of the roughly expected amount. But that's going to range depending on how familiar you are with working on in ArcGIS software and that kind of thing. Asynchronous classes, I think generally should be about the same. And make sure you come to the optional meetings if you're struggling at all, though. I highly encourage that, because that's where you're going to have the chance to get support from the instructor. If you're really having a hard time to get the software installed, that you got to get help early, because those asynchronous classes, the optional meeting times are typically in the evenings during the week. They're not going to be over the weekend necessarily. Some instructors do offer a little bit of extra support, but most are offering that time during the week. So it's kind of on you to budget your time well if you know you might need more help.
I should add something really briefly, is that, as Anna mentioned earlier, that the deadline for signing up for these is earlier than it used to be, though. So, and the reason for that is to make sure that the students have everything working, right? You got to make sure, because you're working on your own computers for the most part, except for the ones that use the Azure or something like that. But most of our students, in fact, I have not had any students this fall that did anything other than on their own computers. So you just got to make sure that that's all ready. So Anna helps out that you know, make sure that you're ready before the class starts, but we have to have an earlier deadline.
So make sure you sign up for that intro by Monday next week. All right.
That's right. Right. The earlier you sign up, the more likely the class will run. We won't have any problems with low enrollment, and we'll be certain to have our classes. So do that. Get in early so you can get together with your anything you need regarding your software. Well, I want to thank everyone. We had as many as 20 participants at our hard point, and we still have 15 that have hung on to the bitter end. So thank you all so much for your time and your questions. And please know that all of us are available to answer your questions at any time. Just refer back to the CEL site, and you can see our contact information. So thank you all for attending, and thank you, wonderful panelists, for being here. I think that went really well. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Hope to see you